What is now the proposed museum was built in Springfield around 1906-07. The building was built at a considerable cost from private donations. The school was a wooden structure of 3 rooms in an L shape. Due to the commerce from the shipment of lumber through Springfield, the population was increasing. 1 classroom was added to each end at a later date. In 1926, a new 2-story brick building was constructed for Springfield High School. So in 1926-27, the school board decided to move the old wooden school to Hungarian settlement, for the old Hungarian school had recently burned.
The building that I'm sitting in now was originally built in Springfield as a public school in 1906-07. So it served there as a public school until around 1926. At that time, Springfield was getting a nice brick building schoolhouse, and so in the meantime, there was already another old building here at Hungarian Settlement. That particular building burned, and so Livingston Parish, seeing the need that these Hungarian children have to be taken care of, moved this old building over here in 1927, and it has been here ever since in Hungarian Settlement.
The school building, as it was configured, could not be easily moved in its entirety as one complete entity. Therefore, the building had to be divided into sections to allow the move over a narrow roadway to accommodate the hauling by the team of oxen upon logs. Cutting the building into 3 sections made the moving easier. The sections were moved separately and rejoined upon completion of the move. Moving these sections required a different technique than anything ever tried here previously. At that time, large moving trucks and trailers where axles of the size that required did not exist. Besides being large, it was cumbersome going on a dirt road with wagon wheel grooves. So logs were cut into 3-foot sections with the limbs and other debris skinned and laid into these ruts to keep the building from tilting. As the building was slowly rolling forward, the log sections from the back were constantly being carried and placed to the front by black laborers. The largest section was moved first. A system of pulleys, blocks, and tackles, cables, and ropes were attached to the building section. Mathematically, the more blocks and tackles connected, the easier the move. A team of oxen was hitched to the apparatus with 200-foot ropes and chains. A large central drum turned on an axis as it was pulled by the oxen team as they strained in their wooden yokes and harnesses. At times, the oxen had to be lashed at with switches to keep them moving. At regular intervals, the well-worn teams were exchanged for fresh ones. It appeared to go slowly, but it made the trip in almost record time of about 3 weeks. The other 2 sections were moved in the same way. The building was reconnected at the seams and made whole again at its current location.
At that time, in 1927, there were no big automobiles that could pick up a building as we can today and move it over here. So this building was moved by oxen. And the way that particular procedure operated is that there would be a block and tackle. The oxen would walk around a drum, the ropes, the cables would tighten up. The building was set down on logs, on short-like logs, and so every time the cables tightened up, the building might move 5 or 6 feet. And so before they would actually get the building on this move, they would saw it into 3 parts. And so during this process, it took about 3 weeks to move the whole thing here, and it has been here ever since.
In 1927, the school had outdoor privies and an artesian well for water. Later, a lunchroom was added in part of the building. There was a stage area for school plays and productions. There were 6 doors with porches where the students lined up to enter the building. In 1943, the school was closed as the students were sent to the new school building in Albany.
This would probably be first-generation Hungarian children, maybe a few others as well. Well, this was their public school, and it was here for grades 1 through 8. There were about 5 classrooms, and some of the classrooms, I think the higher classrooms, 7 and 8, would double up, and there would be one teacher for two classes. And so it was extremely significant because this was their formal education. When they would graduate here, they would go on up to Albany High School and get into the education system there. But this was all Livingston Parish public school system.
The old building remained vacant for a few years. The Hungarian settlement felt the need of a place to take care of the elderly and infirm who could not stay at home alone on their farms. Under the direction of Reverend Alexander Bardis, the building was converted into a nursing home. It was reconfigured for that specialized need and called Our Home. He continued its operation for nearly 40 years until it closed in April of 1976.
The school ran from 1927 to 1943. Reverend Bardis from the Presbyterian Church saw the need to take care of the aging Hungarians, so he was very instrumental in opening this building up as a nursing home. And so it did take on the nursing home role from 1945 until 1976. So it served in that capacity for some 40 years. I guess that the building was broken up into wards, a ward for men, a ward for women, and there was a kitchen here in the building, and the building was actually equipped with a sprinkler system, so it met the codes of a nursing home for that day and time. And I meet people all the time who say, well, my aunt lived there, or my grandmother or my grandfather lived in that nursing home for some time. So it truly was a good deal back in the 1940s, 50s, because nursing homes were not as prevalent as they are today.
In 1976, the nursing home was closed. Several organizations used the building for short periods of time. It then fell into disrepair for many years. In 2000, Juliana Robertson and Irene DeMars were out riding their bicycles one morning and looked at the old building with open eyes. They thought that the old structure should be saved. They asked Juliana's father about it, and he recommended Louis Bardis and Nicholas Erdy. They knew who to speak with to get something going. In 2003, the Hungarian Settlement Historical Society acquired the building from the Livingston Parish School Board for 50 years with automatic renewals.
About 14 years ago, my girlfriend and I were riding bikes, and we had rode 14 miles that day, and we decided to take a break, and our brakes happened to stop at this building. And she, adventurous as she was, she wanted to come in. And I told her we shouldn't do that. But anyway, we came in. And when we did, something just came over us, and we knew we had to do something. So we thought about it, and both of us turned and looked at each other and said, a museum. And I said, okay, but how? So that evening, after I went home, I went and spoke to my dad, Mr. Alec Petho, and I said, Daddy, we have to do something with that building. He says, well, I can tell you. The two people you need to talk to is Mr. Louis Bardis and Mr. Nick Erdy. Well, I got on the phone and I called both of them, and they jumped on the bandwagon. And one thing led to another, and the community support, and we formed the society, and it has just mushroomed. And here we are today with this building that's fixing to be open. And I'm just so proud of everybody in this community that stepped forward to save our heritage for our future generation.
They were inspired that here was a building that would be one of 3 old buildings in the Hungarian settlement. The other 2 old buildings being the Presbyterian Church and the Catholic Church. This building is the 3rd oldest building in Hungarian settlement. So they got to thinking that why not make this into a museum and let it be a memorial for our Hungarian ancestors who lived here and who went to school here. Many of our older citizens came here to get their immigration papers filled out and to seek immigration and citizenship into the United States. So this would be a wonderful opportunity to do this building in as a museum.
Some funds were forthcoming. The renovation has been a slow process, now going on 14 years. Many of the founding members of the Hungarian Settlement Historical Society are deceased or too elderly to actively support the organization. A renewed interest has been put into place. A sizable state capital outlay grant has been received, and fundraisers are bringing in funds. Donations are always graciously accepted in a person's name as a memorial.
My grandfather and grandmother came down like Mr. Kropog family. My grandfather was a carpenter, so he came down here to seek work. And they, at the time, had 10 children also, which was one of my father. And they turned into farmers, strawberry farmers, and that's why. And my father actually went to this school when he was a young boy, my aunts. And it just means something for my children and my grandchildren and our family to know the history about this building and that they're part of it.
I'm a first-generation Hungarian. My father came here from Chicago, and as most Hungarians would settle up in northern cities at first, they would read these advertisements that we have talked about already and come down here looking for a better type of living. And perhaps they were searching that old farming, agrarian type of living, and following these advertisements, they came here and started raising strawberries. And my family did the same thing. My mother came from the state of Virginia, and she and my dad were married down here.
The first thing we did was have the roof replaced, secure it, keep it from leaking. The next project was we had any foundation seals replaced. The building was jacked up and leveled. And then we started with the exterior walls. We had all the boards removed on the exterior walls, insulated wiring put in them, and then put back up. After we had that done, we had the porches put on and some doors made. Then we started on the interior. We started with this part where we're at right now, got it completely finished, and then we worked on the north wing, which we are just about complete with it. We have to finish the air conditioning, some electrical work, and put some more rails on the porches. And hopefully when we get that finished, we can get the approval from the fire marshal and parish, and we can start putting the stuff in and start exhibiting some of the artifacts we have collected. This building was built about 1906. It is on the historical register. So with the exterior, we have to keep it looking as original as possible. Interior, we try to keep it looking as much as we can with the materials we can find to replace to keep it original looking. This is our heritage. This was where, let's say, my father, my aunts came here to learn English, get a little education before they went to school in Albany. It was falling in bad disrepair, so we just felt we had to bring it back to get the community together and teach our children and our grandchildren what our parents and grandparents went through when they came to this country.
Hungarian history is really important to me, and my wife and I have been working with it for the past 20 years. We need to know who we are, we need to know where we came from, and that will kind of help us to know where we're going as well. Many young people, I guess, are not informed of this well enough, and so it is very important. We really need to know more about our ancestors and how they got us here. Now, they came from Hungary, and yes, we don't speak Hungarian anymore, maybe as well as we should, but then just figure this, the Hungarians came here seeking a different life, a different style of living, and so English, what we speak now, is probably the mode for us.
The Hungarian-American relations are now the relations of two friends and the lives. But when I came here, I was moved. I have to tell you, to see that there are hundreds of young and older Hungarians here who preserve their identity. And that was exactly the question that I asked from myself, that how is it possible that they don't necessarily speak the Hungarian language, but still they keep together? And I think the answer is that people need to find their roots, especially in America, which is a big melting pot. For individual and collective existence, it is vitally important. And not to speak about the fact that it has a lot of possibilities in the future as Europe, including Hungary and America, build closer contacts with each other. Then a Hungarian passport, for example, facilitates pan-European free movement, pan-European free employment. And now we are in the midst of the transatlantic trade and investment partnership agreement. It will be signed very soon, and then it will open up not just the cultural identity relations, but the business relations as well.
We think it is very important to preserve the history here of the Hungarian settlement. And that's something we promote when we go out. We go all over the nation working trade shows. That's something we promote. Fine Livingston Parish, that's something that we lack a little bit, is the historic value here in the parish. And this is one thing that we can promote not only here in the region and nationally, but worldwide. We have people stop by the office all the time asking, you know, what can they see? And that's why we're so excited now. We don't not only tell them about the history of it, we'll be able to send them a half a mile down the road and come see the museum and be able to experience it.
If people would like more information about the museum, contact our website, www.hungarianmuseum.com. Also, the Tourist Commission is always ready to answer any of the questions that travelers might have.